When Tasha Ellison pulls an injured stranger from a wrecked car on a stormy night, she has no idea he'll remember only one thing, her. As his past unravels, what they find could cost them everything. Before we get into the story, comment below, where in the world you are watching from today? Tasha Ellison wiped her brow with the back of her hand. Her feet ached after another 12-hour shift at Vern's diner. Tips had been decent tonight, but the bills waiting at home would swallow them whole. At 36, she'd hoped life would be easier by now. "See you tomorrow, Vern," she called. Out, pulling her worn jacket tighter against the October chill. "Drive safe, Tasha," the older man replied from behind the grill. "Storm's coming in." Rain had already started to fall as Tasha climbed into her old Honda. The windshield wipers squeaked across the glass, fighting a losing battle against the downpour. She turned up the radio to drown out the noise, letting the country music wash away the smell of French fries and coffee that clung to her clothes. The narrow county road that led to her small house was dark, lined with trees that bent in the wind. Tasha drove carefully, her headlights cutting through the darkness. The rain came down harder, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. She was rounding a sharp curve when her headlights caught something that made her slam on the brakes. Through the curtain of rain, she could make out the twisted wreckage of a car that had smashed into the guardrail. Smoke was rising from the hood despite the downpour. "Oh my God," she whispered, pulling over to the shoulder. For a moment, she sat frozen. No other cars had stopped. No emergency lights flashed in the distance. Just the rain, the darkness, and that smoking wreck. Tasha reached for her phone, dialing 911 as she stepped out into the rain. The dispatcher's voice crackled through the speaker, but the signal was weak. "There's been an accident on County Road 22, about 3 miles east of Clearwater. A car's crashed into the guardrail. I don't know if anyone's hurt. I'm going to check now." "Ma'am, please wait for emergency services." The call dropped as Tasha approached the vehicle. It was an expensive car, some kind of luxury sports model that cost more than she'd make in 5 years. The driver's side was crumpled against the metal guardrail, but she could see movement inside. "Hello?" she called out, rain soaking through her clothes. "Can you hear me?" A groan answered her. Tasha pulled at the passenger door, which gave way after a hard tug. The interior lights flickered on, revealing a man slumped over the steering wheel. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, matting his dark hair. He was wearing what looked like an expensive suit, now torn and bloodied. "Don't move," Tasha said, reaching in to check his pulse. "Help is coming." The man stirred, his eyes flickering open. They were a startling blue, disoriented and pained. "I'm going to get you out of here," she said, removing her jacket and wrapping it around his shoulders. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and the smoke from the engine was getting thicker. "What's your name, Isa?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Tasha," she replied, surprised by the question. He nodded slightly, as if memorizing. Then his eyes rolled back and closed. Tasha worked quickly, supporting his weight as she helped him out of the car. He was tall and solid, making it difficult for her to maneuver him away from the wreckage. They had barely made it 10 steps when a loud pop came from the car, followed by flames licking at the hood. In the distance, sirens wailed. Tasha held the stranger close, shielding him from the rain with her body as they waited for help to arrive. The hospital waiting room was too bright and too cold. Tasha sat with her hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup of coffee, her clothes still damp from the rain. She'd given her statement to the police and the emergency room doctor, explaining how she'd found the man on the side of the road. "Ms. Ellison?" A nurse in blue scrubs approached her. "You're the one who brought in John Doe." "John Doe," Tasha repeated, "the accident victim. He didn't have any ID on him, and nobody's reported anyone missing who matches his description yet." Tasha nodded. "Is he okay?" "He's stable. He's got a concussion, some cuts and bruises, but nothing life-threatening." The nurse hesitated. "Would you like to see him?" "He's still unconscious, but sometimes it helps to have a familiar face nearby when patients wake up." Tasha glanced at her watch. It was almost midnight, and her niece Lily would be worried. The 17-year-old was responsible enough to be home alone, but Tasha had only planned to be gone for her shift. "Just for a minute," she agreed, following the nurse down the sterile hallway. Room 304 was dimly lit, the steady beep of monitors creating a rhythmic backdrop. The man from the accident lay still on the bed, his face cleaned of blood but bruised along the left side. An IV dripped steadily into his arm. "He's quite lucky," the nurse said quietly. "The car was totaled. If you hadn't stopped—" Tasha moved closer to the bed, studying the stranger's face. He was handsome in a refined way. Strong jaw, straight nose, thick eyelashes resting against his cheeks. His hands resting on top of the blanket were clean and well kept. Not the hands of someone who worked with them for a living. "Do you know anything about him?" the nurse asked. Tasha shook her head. "I just found him on the road. He asked my name before he passed out, that's all." After the nurse left, Tasha stood awkwardly by the bed. She wasn't sure why she'd agreed to come see him. He was a stranger, after all. But something about finding him there alone in the rain had affected her. "You're going to be okay," she said softly, though she knew he couldn't hear her. "They'll figure out who you are, and your family will come." She turned to leave, but as she reached the door, she heard a rustling from the bed. "Tasha," the voice was weak but clear. She turned back, surprised to find the man's blue eyes open, focused directly on her. "You remember me?" she asked, moving back to his side. He nodded slightly, then winced at the movement. "You pulled me out." "That's right," she smiled. "How are you feeling?" He closed his eyes for a moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I don't know. Everything hurts. I should get the nurse. Wait." His hand reached out, catching her wrist with surprising strength. "What happened?" "You were killed in a car accident. Do you remember?" His expression grew distant, troubled. "No, I don't remember driving. I don't remember—" He trailed off, his grip on her wrist tightening. "I don't remember anything." Tasha felt a chill that had nothing to do with her damp clothes. "Nothing? Not even your name?" His eyes widened, with the first hints of panic. "No, nothing before waking up here." His breathing quickened. "Why can't I remember?" Tasha hit the call button by his bed. "Try to stay calm. The doctor will explain." "But I remember you," he said, his voice steadying slightly. "Your name, your eyes. You were there when everything was dark." The door opened as a nurse and doctor rushed in, responding to the call. Tasha stepped back, allowing them to check on their patient. The doctor, a woman in her 50s with a stern expression, began asking simple questions. "Can you tell me your name?" "No," he replied, the panic returning to his voice. "Do you know what year it is, or where you are?" He shook his head to both. "Questions? Any family members you can recall? A home address? Phone number?" Each question was met with the same distressed response. The only thing he could remember was being pulled from the car by a woman named Tasha. The doctor turned to Tasha. "Could we speak outside for a moment?" In the hallway, the doctor's expression was grave. "He's experiencing traumatic amnesia. It's not uncommon with head injuries like his. The memory loss might be temporary, or it could last longer. We'll need to run more tests." "But he remembered me," Tasha said, confused. "Sometimes very recent memories are preserved, especially if they have a strong emotional component. Saving someone's life certainly qualifies." The doctor glanced back at the room. "We've notified the police about his condition. They'll work on identifying him through the car registration and other means." Tasha nodded, feeling a weight of responsibility she hadn't expected. "I should go. My niece is waiting for me at home." "Of course." The doctor hesitated. "Would you consider coming back tomorrow? You seem to be the only connection he has right now. It might help him stay calm while we figure out who he is." Tasha thought of her schedule. The early shift at the diner, bills to pay, Lily's college applications to review. She didn't have time to babysit a stranger with amnesia. "I'll try," she said finally, knowing she probably would. "Tell him I'll come back when I can." The small yellow house at the end of Maple Street looked warm and inviting after the coldness of the hospital. Tasha pulled into the driveway, noticing that the porch light was still on. Lily was waiting up for her. Sure enough, the front door opened before Tasha could even get her key out. Lily stood in the doorway, her long brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail, wearing pajama pants and one of Tasha's old college sweatshirts. "Where have you been?" the teenager demanded, Concern etched on her face. "I've been calling and texting for hours." Tasha realized her phone was still in her car, probably dead after the 911 call. "I'm sorry, Lil. There was an accident on the way home." Lily's eyes widened. "Are you okay?" "The car, not me," Tasha quickly reassured her, stepping inside the warm house. "I found someone who crashed. I had to help, and then I went to the hospital with him." Lily followed her to the kitchen, where Tasha gratefully accepted the cup of tea her niece handed her. "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes, but he can't remember who he is." Tasha sank into a chair at their small kitchen table. "It's the strangest thing. He remembers me pulling him from the car, but nothing before that. Like amnesia. That happens in real life." Lily looked fascinated. She'd always been drawn to medical mysteries, hoping to become a doctor someday if they could figure out how to pay for college. "Apparently." Tasha sipped her tea, the warmth spreading through her tired body. "The doctor asked if I'd come back tomorrow. They think seeing me might help him somehow." Lily leaned against the counter. "Are you going to?" Tasha sighed. "I don't know. I have the early shift and then we need to finish your application for the scholarship." "I can work on that myself," Lily interrupted. "And I can make dinner tomorrow. You should go." "Since when are you so eager to get rid of me?" Tasha asked with a small smile. Lily rolled her eyes. "Since you found a mysterious, handsome stranger with amnesia who only remembers you." "It's like a movie, Aunt Tasha." "It's not like that at all," Tasha protested. "He's just some guy who needs help." "Is he cute?" Lily pressed, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. Despite herself, Tasha felt a blush creeping up her neck. "That's not relevant, so that's a yes," Lily laughed. "You're totally going back tomorrow." The next day after her shift at the diner, Tasha found herself back at the hospital. She'd changed out of her work uniform into jeans and a clean sweater, telling herself it was just common courtesy, not to smell like cooking grease. When she arrived at room 304, she was surprised to find the man sitting up in bed, looking out the window. He turned as she entered, and the smile that spread across his face made her heart skip unexpectedly. "You came back," he said, his voice stronger than the night before. "I said I would." She moved closer to the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Today? Better physically." He gestured to his head. "Still empty up here, though. The doctor thinks it might come back gradually," Tasha offered, taking a seat in the chair beside his bed. He nodded, though his expression suggested he wasn't convinced. "They've been asking me questions all day, showing me pictures, trying to jog something loose. Nothing's worked." "Give it time," she said gently. "The police came too. The car I was driving was a rental, paid for with cash. No registration under my name. The clothes I was wearing don't have any labels. It's like I was deliberately trying not to leave a trail." Tasha frowned. "That sounds suspicious." He shrugged, then winced at the movement. "Maybe I'm a spy. Or a criminal." Despite the seriousness of the situation, Tasha found herself smiling. "Or maybe you're just a private person. The only thing I know for sure is that I don't know anything except you." His gaze was intense, searching. "You're the only real thing in my world right now, Tasha." The way he said her name made her uncomfortable in a way she couldn't quite identify. She shifted in her seat. "The doctors must have told you something. What about your injuries? That might give us clues." "Concussion, some cuts and bruises. Nothing broken, surprisingly." He looked down at his hands, turning them over as if they belonged to someone else. "They said I'm probably in my late 30s. Good health. No old surgery scars or identifying marks." "We need to call you something," Tasha said suddenly. "We can't just keep saying, 'Hey, you.'" He smiled again, and she noticed how it transformed his face, softening the sharp angles. "The nurse gave me this when I showered this morning." He reached for a folded white robe lying on the bedside table and showed her a name embroidered on the pocket. "Miles. It's from the hospital gift shop, but it feels better than John Doe." "Miles," Tasha repeated, testing it out. "It suits you, actually." "Then Miles it is until we discover otherwise." He extended his hand formally. "Nice to meet you, Tasha. Again." She shook his hand, noting the warmth of his palm against hers. "Nice to meet you too, Miles." They talked for almost an hour. Though he couldn't share anything about his past, Miles was easy to talk to. He asked questions about Tasha's life, seeming genuinely interested in her answers. She found herself telling him about Lily, about taking custody of her niece after her sister's death 3 years ago, about their struggles to make ends meet. Lily wants to be a doctor, she explained. She's brilliant, straight A's, perfect test scores. She deserves to go to a good school, but even with scholarships— "You're a good person, Tasha," Miles said quietly. "Taking care of your niece, stopping to help a stranger on the road. Not everyone would do those things." Tasha felt herself blush again. Anyone would have stopped at that accident. But they didn't. You did. His eyes held hers. "And I'm grateful." The moment stretched between them, unexpectedly intimate. Tasha broke eye contact first, glancing at her watch. "I should go. Lily will be waiting dinner." "Will you come back?" Miles asked, and there was a vulnerability in his voice that tugged at her. She knew she should say no. She had responsibilities, bills to pay, a teenager to raise. The last thing she needed was to get involved with a man who didn't even know his own name, but something made her nod. "Yes, I'll come back tomorrow." The smile he gave her followed her all the way home. Over the next week, visiting Miles became part of Tasha's routine. She'd stop by the hospital after her shifts at the diner, sometimes bringing him homemade food that Lily had prepared. "The hospital food is terrible," Miles said, gratefully accepting a container of chicken soup. "You and Lily are saving my life." Again, Tasha smiled, settling into what had become her usual chair beside his bed. "Any news today? Any memories coming back?" Miles shook his head, disappointment flashing across his face. "Nothing. The doctors say the amnesia might be partly psychological, something I don't want to remember." "That sounds ominous," Tasha said. "I know." He stirred the soup absently. "What if I was a terrible person, Tasha? What if there's a reason I can't remember?" She studied his face. In the days she'd known him, Miles had shown nothing but kindness and gratitude. He thanked every nurse who entered his room. He remembered details about Lily that Tasha had only mentioned once. Yesterday, he'd folded paper flowers from napkins to give to the elderly woman in the room across the hall who never had visitors. "I don't think you were a terrible person," she said finally. "Terrible people don't usually worry about being terrible." His smile returned, warming his eyes. "I hope you're right." The door opened and Dr. Reynolds entered, clipboard in hand. "Good news, Mr. Doe. Sorry, Miles. You're being discharged tomorrow." Tasha and Miles exchanged startled looks. "But I still don't know who I am," Miles protested. "Medically, you've recovered from your injuries," Dr. Reynolds explained. "Your amnesia is something that may resolve with time, but keeping you here won't speed that process. We've filed reports with the police and missing persons. If someone's looking for you, they'll find you." "Where am I supposed to go?" Miles asked, his voice tight with anxiety. "I don't have a home, money, or ID." Dr. Reynolds looked uncomfortable. "Social services can help with temporary housing, and there are programs—" "He can stay with us," Tasha heard herself say. Both Miles and the doctor turned to her in surprise. "Tasha, I couldn't impose like that," Miles began. "It's not an imposition. We have a spare room." Tasha wasn't sure why she was offering. Her small house barely fit her and Lily comfortably. The spare room was really just a storage space with a fold-out couch. But the thought of Miles in some sterile shelter, alone with his missing memories, bothered her more than it should. "Are you sure?" Dr. Reynolds asked. "Taking in someone in his condition is a big responsibility." "I'm sure." Tasha met Miles's eyes. "But only if you want to." The relief and gratitude in his expression told her everything. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "We'll figure it out," she promised. "You did what?" Lily's voice rose an octave as she stood in their kitchen that evening. "It's just temporary," Tasha explained, unpacking groceries. "Until his memory comes back or they figure out who he is. You invited a total stranger to live with us." Lily wasn't letting it go. "Aunt Tasha, that's crazy. What if he's dangerous?" "He's not dangerous," Tasha said firmly. "And he's not a total stranger. I've been visiting him every day for a week." Lily crossed her arms. "A week isn't long enough to know someone, especially someone with amnesia. He could be anyone." "I know it seems weird," Tasha admitted, "but I couldn't just let him go to some shelter. He saved my life, Lily. He needs our help, Tasha continued, and the spare room is just sitting there. Plus, he'll be able to help around the house while he's staying with us. It might be nice to have someone fix that leaky faucet that's been driving us crazy. Lily's expression softened slightly. You like him? I feel responsible for him, Tasha corrected, feeling her cheeks warm. There's a difference. Lily was smirking now. So when's our new roommate arriving? Tomorrow afternoon. I'll pick him up after my shift. Tasha hesitated. Will you help me clear out the spare room tonight? Lily sighed dramatically, but nodded. Fine. But if he turns out to be a serial killer, I'm saying I told you so in my ghost form. The spare room was small but clean, with a window that looked out onto the backyard. Tasha and Lily had spent hours clearing out old boxes, making up the pull-out couch with fresh sheets, and adding a small dresser they'd found at a thrift store years ago. It's not much, Tasha said apologetically as she showed Miles in the next afternoon. He stood in the doorway looking around with an expression of wonder. It's perfect. Thank you. He was wearing clothes the hospital had provided, plain jeans and a blue button-down shirt that was slightly too big for him. A social worker had given him a small bag with toiletries and a few other essentials. Everything he owned in the world now fit in one plastic bag. I'll let you get settled, Tasha said. Bathrooms across the hall, dinner's at 6. Miles nodded, still taking in his new surroundings. Tasha, I want you to know how much this means to me. I promise I won't stay long, just until I figure things out. Take your time, she replied. We're happy to help. That wasn't entirely true. Lily was still skeptical, though she'd agreed to give Miles a chance. But as Tasha headed to the kitchen to start dinner, she couldn't deny the strange sense of rightness she felt, having him in her home. Dinner that night was slightly awkward. Lily studied Miles with undisguised curiosity, peppering him with questions. He couldn't answer. So you don't remember anything? Not your birthday or where you grew up or if you have a wife, she asked between bites of lasagna. Lily, Tasha warned. It's okay, Miles said. I'd be curious too. He turned to Lily. I don't remember any of those things. It's like my life started in that hospital room when I woke up and saw your aunt. That's so weird, Lily said, but also kind of cool. Like you get to start over as whoever you want to be. Miles considered this. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's terrifying not knowing who I was, but you're right. There's a certain freedom to it too. So, who do you want to be? Lily asked. Miles smiled, the first real smile Tasha had seen since bringing him home. Someone worth saving. Someone who deserves the kindness you and your aunt have shown me. Lily's skeptical expression softened slightly. Well, for now, you can be the guy who helps with the dishes. I cooked, so Aunt Tasha usually cleans up. I'd be happy to help, Miles said, standing to clear the table. As he and Tasha worked side by side at the sink, she was struck by how comfortable it felt. He moved carefully in the unfamiliar space, handing her dishes to dry with a quiet efficiency that suggested he'd done this before. I think I was right-handed, he said suddenly, holding up a dripping plate. And I think I used to cook. It felt familiar when I was watching Lily in the kitchen earlier. Tasha smiled encouragingly. See? Little bits are coming back. That's a good sign. I hope so. He passed her the last dish. I can't keep imposing. On you forever. You're not imposing, she assured him. It's nice having another adult around. This house has felt too quiet since my sister died. Miles leaned against the counter. Tell me about her. Tasha's throat tightened unexpectedly. Few people asked about Karen anymore. She was wild, always getting into trouble, but with the biggest heart. When she found out she was pregnant with Lily at 19, everyone told her to give the baby up. But she refused, said it was the one thing in her life she wouldn't mess up. She sounds brave, Miles said softly. She was. Tasha wiped her hands on a dish towel. The drugs came later, after Lily's dad left. I tried to help, but Karen hated feeling like a charity case. By the time she agreed to rehab, it was too late. Her heart gave out. I'm sorry, Miles said, and the simple sincerity in his voice broke through Tasha's usual defenses. 3 years, and I still expect her to call me in the middle of the night, with some crazy story. Tasha blinked back unexpected tears. Sorry, I don't usually dump all this on people I barely know. Miles hesitated, then gently placed his hand over hers. Maybe that's easier sometimes, talking to someone with no preconceptions. The warmth of his touch sent a strange flutter through Tasha's chest. She pulled her hand away, suddenly self-conscious. "We should check on Lily. She has a big test tomorrow." Miles nodded, recognizing her need to change the subject. "Of course." The next morning, Tasha woke to the smell of coffee brewing. Confused, she made her way to the kitchen to find Miles at the stove, flipping pancakes while Lily sat at the table, textbook open in front of her. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "Hope you don't mind. I wanted to make myself useful." "He's quizzing me on biology while making breakfast," Lily explained. "Did you know he knows all about cellular respiration?" Miles looked as surprised as Tasha felt. "Apparently I do. It just came out when Lily mentioned she was studying it." "Maybe you were a science teacher," Tasha suggested, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "Or a doctor," Lily added excitedly. "Can you tell me about the Krebs cycle next?" The morning continued in this unexpectedly domestic fashion. Miles drove Lily to school in Tasha's car, insisting that Tasha sleep in on her day off. When he returned, he tackled the leaky faucet in the bathroom, fixing it with surprising skill. "Guess I'm handy too," he said with a sheepish smile when Tasha thanked him. "I just knew what to do when I saw the problem." Over the next few days, Miles continued to find ways to make himself useful around the house. He fixed the loose step on the porch, organized the cluttered garage, and even took over most of the cooking after discovering he had a talent for it. "This is amazing," Tasha said one evening, savoring a bite of the pasta he'd prepared. "Where did you learn to cook?" "Like this?" Miles shrugged. "No idea, but it feels right. Like my hands remember, even if my brain doesn't." Lily, who had warmed up to Miles considerably, grinned. "Maybe you were a famous chef or a food critic." "Whatever he was, he's staying," Tasha joked. "I haven't eaten this well in years." The ease of their interactions worried Tasha sometimes. It was too simple to imagine Miles as a permanent fixture in their lives, too easy to come home and find him and Lily laughing over homework at the kitchen table, or to sit with him on the porch after Lily went to bed, talking about everything and nothing. She reminded herself daily that this arrangement was temporary. Eventually, Miles would remember who he was. He would have a life to return to, possibly a family wondering where he was. The thought left a hollow feeling in her chest that she refused to examine too closely. 2 weeks after Miles moved in, Officer Collins from the local police department came by the house. "We've got a possible lead on your identity," he told Miles, who sat tense and alert on the couch. Tasha stood nearby, equally anxious. "The rental car company finally got back to us. The car was rented with cash, but they have security footage of the customer. We're pretty sure it's you." Officer Collins handed Miles a photo. Miles studied it, his brow furrowed. The grainy image showed a man who was clearly him, though his hair was different, longer and styled more formally. He wore sunglasses and an expensive-looking suit. "Does it look familiar?" Tasha asked, peering over his shoulder. Miles shook his head. "It's me, but I don't remember being there." "The name on the rental paperwork was James Smith, but we're pretty sure that's fake," Officer Collins continued. "The credit card used for the deposit was prepaid. Dead end there." "So we still don't know who I really am," Miles said, disappointment evident in his voice. "Not yet, but we're working on it." Officer Collins stood to leave. "In the meantime, we've set you up with a temporary ID under the name Miles Doe. Should help you get a job, open a bank account, that sort of thing." After the officer left, Miles sat quietly, still staring at the photo. "You okay?" Tasha asked gently. "I look like a completely different person," he said. "Someone with money, from the looks of it. Someone who pays cash and uses fake names." He looked up at her, troubled. "What if I was running from something or someone?" Tasha sat beside him on the couch. "Or maybe you were just a private person who didn't want to leave a paper trail. Not everything has to be sinister." "But what if it is?" Miles ran a hand through his hair. "What if I remember who I am, and it's someone you and Lily wouldn't want?" "In your house?" "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," Tasha said firmly. "For now, you're just Miles, the guy who fixed my faucet and makes the best pasta I've ever tasted." His smile was grateful but uncertain. "I should find a job. I can't keep living off your kindness forever." "About that," Tasha began hesitantly, "Vern mentioned they need a cook at the diner. Nothing fancy, but it's steady work. I might have." "Told him you were interested." "You did?" Miles looked surprised. "Only if you want to." "I know it's not much." "It's perfect," Miles interrupted, his face lighting up. "Thank you, Tasha, really." "It's nothing," she said, suddenly flustered by the intensity of his gratitude. "Just a job." "It's not nothing. It's a start." He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "A chance to be whoever I'm going to be now." The warmth of his hand against hers sent that now familiar flutter through her chest. This time, she didn't pull away. Miles started work at the diner the following Monday. Vern put him on the morning shift, which meant he was home in the afternoons when Lily got back from school. Tasha worked evenings, creating a perfect schedule where someone was always home with Lily. "It's like we planned it," Lily commented. One afternoon as she and Miles worked on dinner together. "We're like a real family now." Miles smiled, but there was a sadness behind it that Tasha noticed from where she sat at the kitchen table. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Tasha found Miles sitting on the porch steps, looking up at the stars. "Mind some company?" she asked. He moved over to make room for her. "Not at all." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the cool autumn air wrapping around them like a blanket. "Lily said something today that's been bothering me," Miles finally said. "Oh?" Tasha wrapped her arms around herself against the chill. "She said we're like a real family." Miles kept his eyes on the stars, and for a moment I let myself imagine it was true, that this was my life, that I belonged here. Tasha's heart raced. "And that bothered you?" "What bothers me is how much I want it to be true." He turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "I keep waiting to remember my old life, but what if I like this one better? What if I don't want to be whoever I was before?" "Miles," Tasha began, not sure what she was going to say. "I know it's selfish," he continued. "There could be people out there worried about me. But the thought of leaving here, leaving you and Lily..." He shook his head. "I can't imagine wanting anything else." The raw honesty in his voice made Tasha's chest ache. "You don't have to leave, not until you're ready." "But what if I'm never ready?" His gaze held hers. "What if all I want is to stay right here with you?" The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Tasha knew she should remind him that he didn't know who he was yet, that these feelings might change once his memory returned. She should be the responsible one, the practical one. Instead, she found herself moving closer, drawn by something she couldn't explain. "Then stay," she whispered. The kiss that followed was gentle at first, hesitant. Then Miles's hand came up to cradle her face, and something shifted between them. The kiss deepened, filled with a longing neither of them had acknowledged until this moment. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Miles rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the day you brought me home." Tasha smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "Me too." That night, as she lay in bed replaying the kiss in her mind, Tasha allowed herself to imagine a future with Miles in it. It was a dangerous daydream, she knew. His past could come crashing back at any moment. But for tonight, she let herself believe that some things might be meant to be, even in the most unlikely circumstances. Outside her window, a car drove slowly past the house, its headlights briefly illuminating her bedroom wall before continuing down the street. The same car had passed by twice before that evening, though Tasha, lost in thoughts of Miles, didn't notice. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window as Tasha made coffee. She couldn't stop smiling, remembering the kiss she and Miles had shared the night before. It had been years since she'd felt this way, excited, nervous, alive. "Someone's in a good mood," Lily observed, walking into the kitchen in her school uniform. "Does it have anything to do with a certain amnesiac who lives in our spare room?" Tasha felt her cheeks warm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Lily grinned, reaching for a bowl. "It's not like I saw you two kissing on the porch or anything." "You were spying?" Tasha asked, mortified. "I came down for..." a glass of water and happened to glance out the window. Lily's grin widened. I'm happy for you, Aunt Tasha. Miles is good for you. For both of us. Before Tasha could respond, Miles entered the kitchen. He hesitated when he saw them, his eyes meeting Tasha's with a warmth that made her heart skip. Good morning, he said softly. Morning, Tasha replied, suddenly feeling like a teenager again. Lily rolled her eyes. Oh boy, I'll eat in the living room and let you two be awkward in private. After she left, Miles moved closer to Tasha. Is this weird? Us. Tasha shook her head. Not weird, just unexpected. Good unexpected? He asked, touching her hand. Lightly, definitely good. She smiled up at him. But also complicated. You're still figuring out who you are. I know who I am with you, Miles said simply, and that feels more real than anything I might have forgotten. The sincerity in his voice made Tasha's doubts melt away. She leaned up and kissed him softly. We'll take it slow, okay? See where this goes. Miles nodded, returning her kiss. I'm not going anywhere, unless you want me to. I want you right here, she assured him. Life fell into a comfortable pattern over the next few weeks. Miles worked the morning shift at the diner, quickly becoming Vern's most valued employee. Tasha continued working evenings. In between, they spent time together as a family with Lily, whose initial skepticism had transformed into genuine affection for Miles. You're like the cool uncle I never had, she told him one evening as he helped her with a difficult math problem. Except younger, and dating my aunt. So not really like an uncle at all, I guess. Miles laughed, ruffling her hair affectionately. Whatever I am, I'm glad to be here. Small fragments of memory occasionally surfaced for Miles. He discovered he could play the piano when they visited a music store. He knew how to speak some French when they watched a foreign film. He had a strong aversion to mushrooms and an unexpected love of classic literature. But his past remained a mystery, and as the weeks turned into months, they all began to wonder if his memories would ever fully return. Maybe it's better this way, Miles said one night as he and Tasha sat on the porch swing. It was December now, and they huddled together under a blanket against the winter chill. What if my old life wasn't as good as this one? Tasha rested, her head on his shoulder. You aren't curious anymore. Of course I am, but I'm also afraid. He pulled her closer. What if remembering means losing all this? Losing you. You won't lose me, Tasha promised, though a small voice in her head whispered doubts. What if Miles had a wife somewhere, a family, a completely different life from the one he'd built with them? I think I'm falling in love with you, Tasha, Miles said softly. I don't need my memory to know that. Tasha's heart swelled. I think I'm falling in love with you too. Their lips met, the kiss deeper and more certain than their first. Neither noticed the black sedan parked across the street or the man watching them through the darkened windows. The holiday season brought a festive atmosphere to their small home. Miles, who had been saving his paychecks, surprised Tasha and Lily with a Christmas tree and decorations. You didn't have to do this, Tasha said, touched by the gesture. I wanted to, Miles replied, his eyes bright with happiness. It's my first Christmas that I can remember anyway, and I wanted it to be special. They spent the evening decorating the tree while Christmas music played. Lily taught Miles the traditions her mother had started, hanging the angel last, putting out cookies for Santa even though Lily was too old to believe. Mom always said some traditions are worth keeping, even when you grow up, Lily explained, her voice nostalgic but not sad. Miles nodded, understanding. She sounds like a wise woman. She would have liked you, Lily said with certainty. She always said Aunt Tasha needed someone who could make her laugh. Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. It was true. Karen had always worried that Tasha was too serious, too responsible. You make me laugh, she told Miles, and a lot of other things too. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Miles presented Tasha with a small box. An early Christmas gift. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small heart pendant. Miles, it's beautiful. But this must have cost— Don't worry about that, he interrupted gently. I've been saving, and I wanted you to have something that shows how I feel. As he fastened the necklace around her neck, his fingers brushing against her skin. Tasha felt a surge of emotion so strong it almost overwhelmed her. "I love you," she whispered, the words coming naturally without hesitation. Miles's face lit up. "I love you too, Tasha, more than I can say." That night, for the first time, he stayed in her room instead of the spare one. As they lay together in the darkness, Tasha felt a contentment she'd never known before. Whatever happened with Miles's memory, she couldn't imagine her life without him now. The week after Christmas, Tasha was working the evening shift at the diner when a stranger sat down at her section. He was an older man, impeccably dressed in an expensive suit that seemed out of place in their small-town establishment. "Coffee, please," he said, his voice cultured and confident. Tasha poured him a cup, noticing how he studied her face intently. "Anything else, sir?" "Information, perhaps." He stirred 2 sugars into his cup. "I'm looking for someone. A man who might be going by the name Miles." Tasha felt her blood run cold. "Miles?" The man nodded. "Tall, dark hair, blue eyes, good-looking fellow. I heard he might be working here." "There are a lot of people named Miles," Tasha said carefully. "Why are you looking for this one?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Family business. It's quite important that I find him." "I'm sorry, I can't help you." Tasha started to move away, but the man caught her wrist. "I think you can, Miss Ellison." His grip tightened slightly. "Yes, I know your name, just as I know that the man calling himself Miles has been living in D. You're home for the past 3 months." Tasha pulled her arm free. "I think you should leave. Not until I speak with him." The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, placing it on the counter. "My name is Victor Wolf. I'm sure Miles will find that name interesting. Tell him I'll be at the Clearwater Hotel until tomorrow evening. It would be in everyone's best interest if he came to see me." After Victor left, Tasha picked up the card with trembling hands. Victor Wolf, CEO, Wolf Dynamics. The logo showed a stylized wolf's head, sleek and predatory. "You okay, Tasha?" Vern asked, noticing her pale face. "I need to go home early," she said. "Family emergency." Miles was helping Lily with her college applications when Tasha burst through the front door. "Tasha?" He stood immediately, alarmed by her expression. "What's wrong?" "Someone came to the diner looking for you." She pulled out the business card, handing it to Miles with shaking fingers. "He knew your name, where you live, everything." Miles stared at the card, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Wolf Dynamics, does it mean anything to you?" Tasha asked hopefully. Miles shook his head, then suddenly winced, pressing his palm against his temple. I can't." "Miles?" Lily approached cautiously. "Are you okay? There's something." His face contorted in pain. Something trying to break through. He stumbled and Tasha rushed to support him, guiding him to the couch. "Take it easy, deep breaths." Miles closed his eyes, his breathing shallow. "I saw something, just for a second. A building with that wolf logo. An office. People calling. Calling you what?" Tasha prompted gently. "I don't know, it slipped away." He opened his eyes, frustration evident. "But this man, Victor Wolf, he knows who I am." "He wants to meet with you," Tasha said reluctantly. "He's staying at the Clearwater Hotel until tomorrow." Miles nodded slowly. "Then I have to see him." "I don't like this," Tasha said. "He seemed dangerous." "I'll go with you," Lily offered. "No," Miles and Tasha said simultaneously. "I'll be fine," Miles assured them. "This might be my only chance to find out who I really am." Tasha took his hand. "We'll go together. First thing tomorrow." They barely slept that night. Tasha lay awake, watching Miles toss and turn beside her. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change, that the life they'd built together was hanging by a thread. The next morning they drove to the Clearwater Hotel in silence. Miles stared out the window, his face set in determination. "Whatever happens in there," Tasha said as they parked, "remember that I love you. That I won't change no matter who you were before." Miles squeezed her hand. "I know, that's what gives me courage." The Clearwater was the fanciest hotel in their small town, which wasn't saying much. Still, the lobby was impressive, with marble floors and a chandelier that glittered overhead. I'm here to see Victor Wolf, Miles told the receptionist. Mr. Wolf is expecting you. Suite 412. She eyed his simple clothes with barely concealed disdain. As they rode the elevator, Miles grew visibly tenser. This feels familiar, he said quietly, like I've been in places like this before. When they reached Suite 412, Miles hesitated before knocking. Tasha stood close beside him, lending her silent support. The door opened to reveal Victor Wolf, looking even more imposing than he had at the diner. His grey eyes widened slightly at the sight of Miles, a flash of recognition quickly masked. "Come in," he said smoothly, stepping aside. The suite was luxurious, with a sitting area overlooking the town. Victor gestured for them to sit on the plush sofa while he took an armchair opposite them. "I see you brought your friend," Victor said, eyeing Tasha with thinly veiled disapproval. "Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of Tasha," Miles stated firmly. Victor nodded, conceding the point. "Very well. I suppose I should start by formally introducing myself. I am Victor Wolf, CEO of Wolf Dynamics, one of the largest technology companies in the country." "And who am I?" Miles asked, cutting to the chase. Victor's lips curved into a cold smile. "You, my dear boy, are Grayson Wolf, my nephew and heir to the Wolf Dynamics empire." The name struck Miles like a physical blow. He gasped, pressing his hands to his temples as images suddenly flooded his mind. A boardroom, a penthouse office, business meetings, charity galas, his face on the cover of business magazines. "Grayson," he whispered, testing the name. "Yes," Victor confirmed. "You disappeared 4 months ago, right before your engagement announcement to Vanessa Rothschild. The media circus has been quite irritating." "Engagement?" Tasha's voice was barely audible. Victor's gaze flicked to her. "Yes, to one of the most eligible young women in New York. The marriage, would have consolidated the Rothschild media holdings with our technology assets. A perfect match." Miles, or Grayson, struggled to process this information. "I was running away," he said suddenly, another memory breaking through. "That's why I rented a car under a fake name. I was trying to disappear." Victor's expression hardened. "You were being irresponsible, as usual, running from your obligations. The board was just about to vote on your appointment to COO. Everything was arranged." "Why would I run?" Miles asked, more to himself than to Victor. "Who knows why you do?" "Anything," Victor replied dismissively. "Perhaps cold feet about the engagement, or the pressure of taking on more responsibility at the company. You've always been sensitive." The way he said the word made it sound like a character flaw. Tasha felt a surge of protectiveness toward Miles, who looked increasingly distressed. "So what happens now?" she asked Victor. Now Grayson comes. Home, of course, takes his rightful place at Wolf Dynamics, honors his commitment to Vanessa." Victor spoke as if the matter were settled. "The private jet is fueled and waiting. We can leave this afternoon." "And if I don't want to go?" Miles questioned, his voice stronger now. Victor's expression turned dangerous. "You are a wolf. You have responsibilities, obligations, a life that doesn't include—" He gestured vaguely at Tasha. Whatever this has been." "This has been real," Miles said firmly. "More real than anything you're describing." "Don't be ridiculous, Grayson." Victor stood, moving to the window. "You've been living in some small-town fantasy, playing house with this woman while your actual life has been on hold. It's time to grow up." Miles flinched at the harshness in Victor's tone, and Tasha could see that the words had hit their mark. She reached for his hand, squeezing it supportively. "I need time to think," Miles said finally. "You've had 4 months," Victor replied coldly. "But fine. One day. I'll leave for New York tomorrow evening. Either you'll be on that plane with me, or the next time you see me will be in court, as I challenge your mental fitness to retain your shares in the company." Miles stood abruptly. "We're done here." As they turned to leave, Victor called after them, "Look yourself up online, Grayson. See what you've left behind. Then decide if this little domestic fantasy is worth throwing away everything you were born to be." The drive home was silent. Miles stared unseeing at the passing landscape, occasionally pressing his fingers to his temples as if trying to sort through the rush of returning memories. When they arrived home, Lily was waiting anxiously. "What happened? Did you find out who you are?" Miles nodded dully. "My name is Grayson Wolfe. I'm some kind of tech billionaire, and I'm engaged to someone else." Lily's eyes widened. "Holy crap." "He's supposed to go back to New York tomorrow," Tasha added, her voice carefully controlled. "Back to his real life." "This is my real life," Miles Grayson said fiercely. "At least it feels more real than what that man described." "But it's not," Tasha said softly. "Not really. You had a whole life before the accident, a career, a fiancée." "I don't remember her," he insisted. "I don't love her." "You might when you see her again," Tasha pointed out, hating herself for the words even as she spoke them. "Your memories are coming back now. The rest could follow." "I don't care what I remember. I love you, Tasha. That hasn't changed." But Tasha could see the conflict in his eyes, the confusion as he tried to reconcile the man he'd been with the man he'd become. "You should look yourself up," she suggested, echoing Victor's recommendation, but for different reasons. "You need to know who you are before you decide what to do next." Miles nodded slowly. "Will you help me?" Together they sat at the kitchen table with Lily's laptop. Tasha typed Grayson Wolfe into the search engine, and they were immediately bombarded with results. News articles, business profiles, social media accounts, and images of a man who looked like Miles but somehow not quite him. This Grayson Wolfe wore custom suits, attended black tie events, and stood confidently in boardrooms. His smile never quite reached his eyes. "That's me," Miles whispered, "but it doesn't feel like me." They clicked through article after article. Grayson Wolfe, heir to the Wolfe Dynamics fortune. Harvard Business School graduate, listed among the 30 under 40 most influential business leaders, engaged to Vanessa Rothschild, daughter of media. Mogul William Rothschild. There were photos of him with Vanessa, a stunning blonde woman whose cold smile matched Grayson's. They looked perfect together, like a power couple from a glossy magazine, which they essentially were. "She's beautiful," Tasha said, trying to keep the pain from her voice. "In a scary way," Lily muttered, earning a warning look from her aunt. Miles hardly seemed to notice Vanessa's picture. He was focused on an article describing the search for him after his disappearance. "It says I withdrew a large amount of cash the day before I vanished, left my phone and credit cards behind. They were treating it as a possible kidnapping, but some sources suggested I left voluntarily." "Did you?" Tasha asked gently. "I think so." Miles closed his eyes, concentrating. "I remember feeling trapped, like my life wasn't my own. I wanted to start over." "And you did," Lily pointed out. "With us." The weight of the situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. Miles stood suddenly. "I need some air. I need to think." "Of course," Tasha said, though her heart ached as she watched him walk out the door. She wasn't sure if he was walking out of her life as well. Miles walked aimlessly through town, memories washing over him like waves. With each step, more of his past came back to him. Board meetings where his ideas were dismissed by his uncle, arguments with Vanessa about wedding plans he had no interest in, lonely nights in his penthouse apartment, overlooking a city that never felt like home. He remembered the day he decided to leave, the suffocating pressure of a life mapped out for him by others, the realization that he had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. His feet carried him to the spot on County Road 22 where his car had crashed months ago. The guardrail had been repaired, but Miles could still see in his mind the twisted metal, the smoke rising into the rain-filled night, and Tasha appearing like an angel in the darkness, pulling him to safety. "I wasn't running away," he realized aloud. "I was running towards something. I just didn't know what it was yet." Now he did. The answer was clear, had been clear for months. His heart belonged in that small yellow house on Maple Street, with the woman who had saved him and the teenager who had accepted him. But could he really turn his back on his responsibilities? On the company that bore his family name? On the life he was born to lead? As the sun began to set, Miles made his way back home, the only real home he'd ever known. Tasha was waiting on the porch, her face carefully composed, but her eyes betraying her fear. "Did you figure things out?" Miles sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "I remembered everything, my life before, why I left. And?" Tasha couldn't bring herself to ask the real question. "I was miserable, Tasha. Rich, successful, engaged to a woman I didn't love, but empty inside. I felt like a puppet, dancing on strings pulled by my uncle." Miles's eyes were clear now, certain. "I don't want to go back to that." Hope flickered in Tasha's heart, but she pushed it down. "What about your company, your responsibilities?" "I own 25% of Wolf Dynamics. That gives me options." He smiled slightly. "Options I didn't realize I had until I gained some perspective these past months. I don't have to be what my uncle wants me to be." "What do you want to be?" Tasha asked softly. Miles cupped her face gently. "Yours. If you'll still have me, knowing everything." Tears spilled down Tasha's cheeks. "Of course I will, I love you. Miles or Grayson or whoever you choose to be." "I choose to be the man I became with you," he said simply. "The man who cooks breakfast and helps with homework and falls asleep. Holding you every night, that's the real me. The rest is just details." As they kissed, the weight of uncertainty finally lifted from Tasha's shoulders. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Inside the house, Lily watched them through the window, smiling through her own tears. She'd been right all along. They were a real family now, but across town, in his hotel suite, Victor Wolf was making phone calls. His face was dark with anger as he spoke into his phone. "He's not cooperating. We need to move to Plan B, remind him of exactly what's at stake." He hung up, staring out at the small town that had stolen his nephew. "This isn't over, Grayson," he muttered, "not by a long shot." The next morning, Miles, now aware that he was Grayson Wolf, sat at the kitchen table with Tasha and Lily, explaining what he planned to do. "I need to face Victor," he said, his voice firm with newfound confidence. "I'll go to the hotel this afternoon and tell him my decision in person." "Which is?" Lily asked, though they all knew the answer. "I'm staying here with both of you." His smile was gentle but determined. "This is my home now." Tasha reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "What about Wolf Dynamics? Your uncle made it sound like you have obligations there." "I do own a significant portion of the company," Miles acknowledged, "but that doesn't mean I have to run it. I can be a silent partner, attend board meetings remotely when necessary. Victor mostly wants control of my voting shares anyway." "And your fiancé?" Tasha couldn't help asking. The question had been haunting her all night. Miles's expression darkened. "Vanessa and I were never in love. It was a business arrangement pushed by our families. I remember now that we were arguing constantly before I left. She didn't want me as a husband. She wanted the status of being married to a wolf." "So you're not going back to New York at all?" Lily seemed skeptical. "You're just going to give up being a billionaire to stay in Clearwater with us?" "Money isn't everything, Lily," Miles said gently. "Trust me, I had all of it and was miserable. Here I found something real." He looked at Tasha, his eyes full of love. "Something worth more than any amount in a bank account." Tasha felt her heart swell, but a nagging worry remained. "Your uncle doesn't seem like the type to accept rejection easily." "He's not," Miles admitted, "but legally, he can't force me to do anything. I'm a grown man who's chosen a different path." "So what happens next?" Lily asked. "First I talk to Victor. Then I'll need to handle some legal matters regarding my identity and assets. After that," he looked at Tasha hopefully, "we continue, building our life together, if that's what you want." "It's all I want," Tasha assured him. After breakfast, Miles borrowed Tasha's car to drive to the bank. "There's something I need to check," he explained. "I'll be back in an hour, then we can go see Victor together." When he returned, there was a new confidence in his step. He pulled Tasha aside, speaking quietly so Lily wouldn't hear. "I remembered something important. Before I left New York, I set up an account under a different name, a backup plan, in case I needed to disappear completely." His eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's still there, untouched. More than enough money to pay off this house, send Lily to any college she wants, and give us a comfortable life without ever having to worry about finances again." "Miles," Tasha began, overwhelmed. I know. Money isn't everything," he said quickly. "But it can make some things easier, like making sure Lily gets her chance to become a doctor, like giving you the security you've never had." Tasha felt tears welling in her eyes. All those years of struggle, of worrying about bills, of wondering how she'd afford Lily's education, the weight of it suddenly lifted from her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered, hugging him tightly. The Clearwater Hotel seemed different in daylight, less intimidating, more ordinary. Miles walked through the lobby with purpose, Tasha at his side. They made a striking couple. Him tall and confident, her with a quiet strength that complemented his energy. When they reached Suite 412, Miles knocked firmly. After a long moment, the door opened to reveal not Victor, but a woman Miles instantly recognized. "Vanessa," he said, the name feeling foreign on his tongue. The blonde woman who stood before them was even more beautiful in person than in the photographs they'd seen online. Perfectly styled hair, immaculate makeup, designer clothes. That probably cost more than Tasha's monthly salary. But her beauty was cold, calculated like a statue rather than a living person. Grayson. Her voice held no warmth, no relief at seeing her supposedly missing fiancé, just mild irritation, as if he were late for dinner. Her eyes flicked dismissively over Tasha before returning to Miles. "Victor said you might show up. He's on a conference call but should be finished soon." She stepped aside to let them enter, her movements graceful but stiff. Inside, she poured herself a drink from the suite's minibar without offering them anything. "So this is where you've been hiding?" She gestured vaguely at Tasha. "Playing house in the middle of nowhere?" "I wasn't hiding, Vanessa. I left." Miles's voice was calm but firm. "And I had my reasons. Do you have any idea what a mess you've caused?" Vanessa took a sip of her drink. "The press has been relentless. I've had to cancel 2 charity galas and postpone the wedding arrangements. It's been a nightmare for the PR team." "I'm sorry for any inconvenience," Miles said, not sounding particularly sorry at all. "But there isn't going to be a wedding." Vanessa laughed, a brittle sound without humor. "Of course there is. Your little adventure is over now. Time to come home and face reality." "This is my reality now," Miles said, reaching for Tasha's hand. "I'm staying here." Vanessa's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly as she took in their joined hands. "How sweet. You've fallen for your small-town nurse." "I'm a waitress, actually," Tasha corrected quietly. "Even better." Vanessa's smile was razor-sharp. "Grayson, darling, this is absurd. You can't possibly give up everything, your family, your position, your wealth for some waitress." Before Miles could respond, the door to the bedroom opened and Victor Wolfe emerged, phone still in hand. His face hardened when he saw Miles and Tasha. "Grayson, I see you've reacquainted yourself with your fiancé." "Ex-fiancé," Miles corrected. Firmly. "I've made my decision, Uncle Victor. I'm staying here in Clearwater." Victor's expression didn't change, but a dangerous glint appeared in his eyes. "I expected as much. That's why I took certain precautions." "What are you talking about?" Miles asked, suddenly wary. Victor nodded to Vanessa, who pulled out her own phone and tapped the screen a few times before holding it up. "Take a look." The screen showed a bank account, Miles's secret account, with a balance of 0. "How did you?" Miles began, shocked. "You think I didn't know about your little escape fund?" Victor sneered. "I've been watching your financial moves for years, Grayson. When you disappeared, I had all your accounts traced. It took some time to find this one. But once we did, it was simple enough to have the funds frozen and returned to the company account." Miles felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath him. The safety net he'd counted on, his means of providing for Tasha and Lily, was gone. "You had no right," he said, his voice low with anger. "I had every right. That money came from Wolf Dynamics' profits. You were essentially embezzling from the company." Victor's smile was cold. "Of course, I could convince the board not to press charges if you agree to return to New York and fulfill your obligations." "You're blackmailing me," Miles realized. "I prefer to think of it as providing motivation." Victor moved to the window, looking out at the small town with disdain. There's more at stake than just your personal happiness, Grayson. The company employs thousands of people. The Wolf name stands for something. Your father built this legacy. For you to carry on, not abandon on a whim. It wasn't a whim, Miles said firmly. I was unhappy, empty, going through the motions of a life I never chose. And now you've chosen this? Vanessa gestured dismissively at Tasha again. A waitress in a small-town diner? A rented house? How quaint. At least it's real, Miles shot back. What did we have, Vanessa? Business dinners, photo opportunities, two people who barely tolerated each other in private. Vanessa's perfect composure cracked slightly. We had an arrangement that benefited us both. Your name, my family's media connections. It made sense. Not to me. Not anymore. Miles turned to Victor. I won't be blackmailed. Keep the money. I'll find another way to provide for Tasha and Lily. Victor's expression darkened. Don't be foolish, Grayson. You have no marketable skills outside of running Wolf Dynamics. What will you do? Flip burgers for the rest of your life? If I have to, yes. Miles stood tall, unintimidated. I'd rather be happy and poor than miserable and rich. This isn't just about money, Victor said, his voice hardening. Your shares in the company give you voting rights that could block our upcoming merger with Rothschild Media. If you won't, return to take your proper place. I'll need those shares transferred to me. No. Miles stood firm. I may not want to run the company, but I won't let you have complete control either. I know what you do with it. Layoffs, cutting corners on product safety, chasing profits at any cost. My father wouldn't have wanted that. Victor's face flushed with anger. Your father was weak, just like you, always talking about ethics and responsibility when we could have been expanding, dominating the market. Maybe that's why he left his shares to me, not you, Miles replied calmly. For a moment, tension filled the room so thickly it was hard to breathe. Then Victor pulled out his phone again. I had hoped to avoid this, but you leave me no choice. He tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward Miles. I think you'll find this very interesting. It was a news article, freshly published. The headline read, Missing Wolf Heir Found Living Double Life. Miles felt his stomach drop as he scanned the article. It detailed how Grayson Wolf, heir to the Wolf Dynamics fortune, had been found living under the assumed name Miles in a small town, involved romantically with a local waitress while still engaged to Vanessa Rothschild. The media is already running with the story, Victor said smugly. By tomorrow, this town will be crawling with reporters. Your picture will be everywhere. Your privacy, gone. And what about your waitress and her niece? How will they feel with cameras following their every move, digging into their past, exposing every detail of their lives to the world? Tasha, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Is that supposed to scare us? We haven't done anything wrong. Perhaps not, Victor conceded, but the press can be quite creative. I wonder what they'd make of a young woman taking in a wealthy amnesiac, perhaps suggesting she was taking advantage of his vulnerable state, or looking into how she came to be her niece's guardian. I understand the girl's mother had quite a troubled past. Drug issues, wasn't it? Tasha paled, and Miles felt rage building inside him. Leave them out of this, Victor. This is between you and me. It became about them the moment you chose them over your family, Victor replied coldly. The plane leaves at 7. Be on it. Sign over your voting rights to me, and I'll make sure the press loses interest in your little friends here, or stay and watch their lives torn apart by the media circus that's about to descend. With that, Victor turned and walked back into the bedroom, closing the door behind him. Vanessa lingered, her cold eyes studying Tasha with clinical detachment. He's not bluffing, she said finally. Victor always gets what he wants. One way or another. She followed Victor into the bedroom, leaving Miles and Tasha alone in the suite's living room. We should go, Tasha said quietly, tugging at Miles's hand. They left the hotel in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. In the car, Miles stared out the window, his expression troubled. He's right, you know, he said finally. About the media. They'll be relentless. We can handle it, Tasha insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. We haven't done anything wrong. It doesn't matter. They'll twist everything, make our lives impossible. Miles ran a hand through his hair in frustration. And Lily, she's just starting to apply to colleges. This could follow her, affect her future. "So what are you saying?" Tasha asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "That you should go with them, back to a life you hated?" "I don't know what I'm saying." Miles sounded lost. "I just know I can't let Victor hurt you and Lily, not because of me." They drove the rest of the way in silence, each wrestling with impossible choices. When they arrived home, Lily was waiting, anxiously. "How did it go? Are they gone?" Miles exchanged a look with Tasha before answering. "It's complicated, Lil. Victor froze the money I had set aside, and he's threatened to turn the media spotlight on all of us if I don't go back with him." Lily's face fell. "So you're leaving, just like that?" "No," Miles said quickly. "We're figuring this out. Together." Tasha moved to the kitchen, needing a moment alone to think. She heard Miles and Lily continue talking in the living room, their voices a low murmur of concern. As she filled a glass with water, her gaze fell on the kitchen window. Outside, a car she didn't recognize had parked across the street. A man with a camera was sitting inside, his lens pointed directly at their house. It had already begun. She returned to the living room, her heart heavy. "There's a photographer outside. They know where we live." Miles stood immediately, moving to the window to confirm, his face darkened with anger. "Victor works fast. What do we do?" Lily asked, suddenly looking very young and frightened. Before either adult could answer, Miles's phone rang, the new one he'd purchased after accepting his identity as Grayson. The caller ID showed unknown. "Hello?" he answered cautiously. "Tasha." Watched as his expression changed from wariness to surprise, then thoughtful consideration. "Yes, I understand that might work. I'll need guarantees. Yes, tomorrow morning would be fine." When he hung up, both Tasha and Lily looked at him expectantly. "That was Arnold Chen, the chief legal officer at Wolf Dynamics," Miles explained. "He's always been more aligned with my father's vision than Victor's. He says there might be a way to resolve this, without me returning to New York permanently." "How?" Tasha asked. "A compromise. I maintain my ownership shares, but appoint Arnold as my proxy for voting purposes, with specific guidelines he must follow. I'd need to attend quarterly board meetings, but I could do that remotely most of the time." A small smile formed on Miles's face. "And I'd receive my full inheritance, which Victor's been withholding while I was missing." "Would Victor agree to that?" Lily asked skeptically. "He might not have a choice. Arnold says several board members are uncomfortable with how Victor's been handling the company lately. They'd support this arrangement." Miles sat down on the couch, looking thoughtful. "It would mean I'd have to go to New York for a few days to sign the papers and make it official. But then I could come back home." "And the reporters?" Tasha questioned. "Arnold thinks they can spin the story. Wolf Air chooses simpler life after accident is actually a positive human interest story. They'd issue a statement confirming the end of my engagement to Vanessa by mutual agreement, citing personal growth and new priorities." Hope began to replace the fear that had been building in Tasha's chest. "So you could stay? You wouldn't have to go back to your old life?" "I'd have to manage some responsibilities from a distance," Miles acknowledged. "But yes, my life would be here, with you." Lily, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "If you're going to New York, even just for a few days, I think Aunt Tasha should go with you." Both adults turned to her in surprise. "Why?" Tasha asked. "Because she's never seen where you came from," Lily explained to Miles, "and because you need someone in your corner when you face your uncle again." She grinned mischievously. "Plus, she's never been to New York. It would be like a mini vacation." "What about you?" Tasha asked, concerned. "I can stay with Jenny for a few days," Lily said, referring to her best friend. "Her mom already said it was fine when I texted her." "You've been planning this?" Tasha asked, surprised by her niece's foresight. "I had a feeling something like this might happen." Lily shrugged. "Besides, you two need some time alone to figure things out, away from all of this." Miles looked at Tasha hopefully. "Would you come with me? I'd feel better having you there." Tasha hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Of course I will." The next 3 days were a whirlwind. Miles worked with Arnold Chen to arrange the legal documents while fending off reporters who had indeed begun to gather outside their house. Tasha took emergency leave from the diner, packed a small suitcase, and delivered Lily to Jenny's house. with strict instructions to call if anything happened. The morning of their departure, a sleek black car with tinted windows arrived to take them to the airport where a private jet waited. "Is this how you always traveled?" Tasha asked as they settled into the luxurious leather seats of the jet. Miles nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. "That seems excessive now. After living a simpler life, I see how unnecessary a lot of it was." The flight to New York was smooth and quick. As they began their descent, Tasha gazed out the window at the sprawling cityscape below. "It's overwhelming," she admitted. Miles squeezed her hand. "It's just a place. It doesn't define who I am anymore." A driver met them at the airport, whisking them to a towering skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. The Wolf Dynamics logo, the stylized wolf's head, dominated the building's facade. "This is where you worked?" Tasha asked, craning her neck to see the top of the building. "The top 5 floors," Miles confirmed. "My office was on the penthouse level." Inside, the lobby was all gleaming marble and steel, with a massive security desk where they had to check in. The security guards recognized Miles immediately, their professional composure slipping as they stared in surprise. "Mr. Wolf, welcome back, sir." Miles nodded politely, but didn't correct them about his name. In this world, he was Grayson Wolf. Again, at least for now. They were escorted to a private elevator that whisked them to the 50th floor, where Arnold Chen was waiting. He was a slim, serious man in his 50s, with kind eyes behind stylish glasses. "Grayson," he said warmly, shaking Miles's hand. "It's good to see you well. And this must be Ms. Ellison." "Please, call me Tasha," she said, surprised by his friendly demeanor. "The meeting is set for 11, Arnold explained as he led them to a conference room. "Victor will be there, along with the key board members. I've prepared everything as we discussed." The conference room had a wall of windows overlooking the city, a massive table of polished wood and leather chairs that probably cost more than Tasha's car. She felt out of place in her simple dress, especially when the board members began to arrive in their expensive suits and designer accessories. Victor was the last to enter, his face darkening when he saw Miles sitting calmly at the table with Tasha beside him. He'd clearly expected Miles to come alone, or not at all. "I see you've brought your friend," Victor said, his tone making the words sound like an insult. "I've brought my partner," Miles corrected firmly. "Tasha will be part of any discussion about my future." The meeting that followed was tense but productive. Arnold presented the compromise plan. Miles would retain his ownership shares, but appoint Arnold as his voting proxy, with clear guidelines. That aligned with his father's original vision for the company. Miles would attend quarterly board meetings, mostly via video conference, with one in-person meeting annually. In return, he would receive his full inheritance and maintain his seat on the board. Victor objected strenuously, but it quickly became clear that the other board members supported the arrangement. They were tired of Victor's aggressive tactics and concerned about the direction he'd been taking the company. "This is absurd," Victor finally sputtered. "You're choosing to throw away everything your father built for you." "No, Uncle Victor," Miles said calmly. "I'm choosing to honor his legacy in my own way, by ensuring the company continues to follow his ethical standards while finding my own path to happiness." In the end, Victor was outvoted. The agreement was signed, with Arnold beaming proudly as Miles added his signature to the documents. "Your father would be proud," Arnold told him quietly as the meeting concluded. "Not because you're staying with the company, but because you're standing up for what you believe in." As the board members filed out, Victor lingered, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. "This isn't over, Grayson. You've humiliated me today. I won't forget it." "It's not about you, Uncle Victor," Miles replied steadily. "It never was. It's about doing what's right, for the company, for the employees, and for myself." Victor's eyes flicked to Tasha, cold calculation in his gaze. "Enjoy your little fantasy while it lasts. She'll show her true colors eventually, once she realizes what she could gain from you." "You're wrong about her," Miles said simply, "just like you're wrong about what truly matters in life." Victor left without another word, his back rigid with fury. "Will he cause problems?" Tasha asked worriedly. Arnold shook his head. "His power has been significantly curtailed today, and the board will be watching him closely from now on. He smiled at Miles. "You're free to go build your life, Grayson, or should I say Miles?" Miles smiled gratefully. "Miles, please. Grayson Wolfe will handle the business matters when necessary, but Miles is who I am now." They spent 2 more days in New York, staying in Miles's penthouse apartment while he tied up loose ends. To Tasha, the apartment felt like a museum, perfectly decorated but sterile, without any sense of the man she loved. "I never really made it a home," Miles admitted as they looked around the vast space. "I was barely here except to sleep." On their last evening in the city, Miles took Tasha to dinner at a small, intimate restaurant tucked away on a side street. It wasn't the type of flashy, expensive establishment she'd expected, but a cozy place with excellent food and a warm atmosphere. "This was the one place in the city where nobody knew who I was," Miles explained. "The owner doesn't follow business news and never recognized me. I could just be myself here." Over dessert, Miles reached across the table and took Tasha's hand. "These past few days, seeing my old life, dealing with Victor and the board, it's all confirmed what I already knew. My place is with you and Lily in our little house on Maple Street." Tasha smiled, her heart full. "Are you sure? This world has a lot to offer that I can't give you." "This world gave me everything except what I truly needed." Miles squeezed her hand. "You gave me that. A sense of belonging, of being valued for who I am, not what I own or what my last name is." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box, placing it on the table between them. "I know it's soon. We've only known each other for a few months, but when you know, you know." Tasha's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. It wasn't ostentatious or flashy. It was elegant and understated, just like their love. "I'm not asking you to answer right now," Miles said softly. "But I wanted you to know that when you're ready, so am I. I want to build a life with you, Tasha. A real one, filled with all the everyday moments that matter." Tears filled Tasha's eyes as she looked at the ring, then at the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who had literally lost everything only to find something more valuable. "I don't need time," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "My answer is yes. It's been yes since the moment you chose to stay." Miles slipped the ring onto her finger, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "I love you, Tasha Ellison. With or without my memory, that's the one thing I'm certain of." "I love you too," she whispered. "Miles, Grayson, whoever you are, you're the man I want to spend my life with." They returned to Clearwater 2 days later, driving from the airport in a comfortable silence, both lost in thoughts of their future together. When they pulled into the driveway of the little yellow house, Lily burst out the front door, rushing to meet them. "Finally," she exclaimed, hugging them both. "I was going crazy waiting for you to get back." She grabbed Tasha's hand, immediately, spotting the ring. "Ha! I knew it. Jenny owes me $20. "You bet on us getting engaged?" Tasha asked, trying to sound stern but failing as happiness bubbled up inside her. "Duh. It was obvious from day one," Lily replied with teenage confidence. "So how did it go with the evil uncle? Did you vanquish him?" Miles laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Something like that. I'll tell you all about it inside." As they walked toward the house, arm in arm, a car pulled up to the curb. Tasha tensed, fearing it might be another reporter, but it was Vern from the diner. "Heard you two were coming back today," he said, climbing out of his truck. "Wanted to be the first to welcome you home." He handed Miles an envelope. "And to give you this." Miles opened it, puzzled to find papers transferring ownership of the diner from Vern to him. "I don't understand," Miles said, looking up in confusion. "I'm retiring," Vern explained. "Been meaning to for years. When I heard about your situation, rich city boy who actually knows how to cook and make people feel welcome, I figured maybe you'd want a business of your own, something that's yours, not your family's." "I can't accept this," Miles protested. "At least let me pay you," Vern waved him off. "Already arranged with that lawyer fellow of yours. Fair price, all above board. I just wanted to hand over the keys myself." He looked between Miles and Tasha. "You two make a good team. The diner needs that." After Vern left, Miles stood staring at the keys in his hand, a slow smile spreading across his face. Our own business, he said wonderingly. Something we can build together. If that's what you want, Tasha said, you don't have to prove anything, you know. You could just be a silent partner in wolf dynamics and never work another day in your life. But where's the joy in that? Miles asked, his eyes alight with excitement. I want to work alongside you, to create something that's ours. Something Lily can be part of too if she wants, when she's not busy becoming a doctor. Lily grinned. I could wait tables on summer breaks from med school, which, by the way, I got early acceptance to the pre-med program at State University. Jenny's mom told me when the letter came yesterday. That's wonderful. Tasha hugged her niece tightly, tears of pride springing to her eyes. Miles joined their hug, the three of them standing together in the golden afternoon light. This is what matters, he said softly. This right here, not the money or the power or the name, just us. As they walked into their home together, Tasha thought about the night she'd found Miles on that rainy road. How one simple decision to stop and help had changed all their lives forever. From the man without a past had come a future brighter than any of them could have imagined. Miles caught her looking at him and smiled, the love in his eyes as clear as the day they'd met. What are you thinking about? He asked. Just that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, she replied, squeezing his hand, and that I'm very glad I drove down County Road 22 that night. So am I, Miles said softly. So am I. In the distance, the storm clouds that had been gathering all afternoon finally broke, rain beginning to fall in a gentle rhythm on the roof of their little yellow house. But inside, there was only warmth and love, and the certainty that whatever the future held, they would face it together. The waitress who stopped to help and the man who had lost everything only to find what truly mattered. The end.